To start in just a few moments. We appreciate you all being here, especially given the week that we've all had. And we just are grateful to be in solidarity with all of you. We have over 50 organizations that are co-hosting this call together for climate, and over 2,300 people who are interested and care about the climate in the midst of all of the stuff that the world is going through. So we just wanted to say again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And I would like to go ahead and introduce Kaniela Ng, the National Director of the Green New Deal Network, an amazing Indigenous organizer from Hawaii, and my boss. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Kaniela, who will introduce some of our speakers.
All right. Aloha aina kako o Kaniela ko inoa e Hawaii au. I am Kaniela Ng, Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiian. I'm a father of two and the national director of the Green New Deal Network. And it's incredibly refreshing to see so many organizations coming together for this mass call, over 50 nationally, along with hundreds of state and local members and partner organizations from within the Green New Deal Network family. Living legends are going to speak tonight. Some of my heroes, like Judith LeBlanc of Native Organizer Alliance and Indian Collective, Kumi Naito of the Fossil Fuels Anti-Proliferation Treaty, Bill McKibben, who really needs no introduction, policy leaders like Ali Zayed, Senator Ed Markey, Representative Ramirez, and to the thousands of you who showed up across platforms, thank you for being here. Mahalo. It shows that we're not stopping, we remain united, and this fight still is ours to be won. Um, no, I won't sugarcoat it. Times suck right now. You're feeling it. I'm feeling it. People on the left, the center left, even on the center right, feeling lonely, unseen, inadequate, aimlessly looking for our own saviors and strongmen, not knowing where to take the next step. We watched yesterday's inauguration, just a week after the devastating LA fires, an unnatural disaster fueled by planet heating pollution and corporate mismanagement of land. On full display was the very oligarchy responsible for it. Three white men flanking a billionaire president, their testosterone enhanced but still unimpressive chests puffed out as they smugly eyed each other's wives. All of them have exponentially and artificially amassed obscene riches since November's election. Petty, fragile, a pathetic man tightening the grip on this nation. They say they will eliminate the Green New Deal, eradicate anti-corruption laws, and conduct mass deportations immediately. They gesture Nazi salutes, actually violently thrusting downward palms into the air openly from within the thralls of Congress and the White House now. And they tell us, nah, don't believe your own lying brown eyes of what you're seeing. Now, this stuff hurts, but mind you, it's by design. They are triggered by the power of that our communities have gained. So they want to cut down our self-esteem. It's their MO. Ask their ex-wives. They expect us to get swept up in hopelessness and despair, dispirited and offended by their heinous words and symbols. So we stop showing up. So we stop looking up at the scoreboard where we are actually winning. In 2020, we launched a 10-year campaign for a Green New Deal, and that means that this is halftime. And what we aren't giving ourselves enough credit for is our massive plays, our massive hits, catches, touchdowns, victories, freaking highlight reel that we've created. And why don't we play it more? We've completely upended the way half our nation's leaders talk about and pursue climate action. No longer is it about what we need to sacrifice, but what we have to gain. No longer is a narrative about feeding polar bears in Antarctica and warming icebergs, but about feeding hungry kids in your community and warming up apartment buildings during the winter, cheaper than before. The union jobs, the savings, the beauty of well-designed cities, community gardens, family farms, fast trains like the rest of the world, social housing, clean parks and public spaces outside of just malls. And regardless of whether you are a senior citizen or someone with a disability, whatever, you can move about freely with friends and family and neighbors in fellowship, not stuck in traffic, where we can drink water from the tap. Our kids don't have asthma. Taxes go to our own needs, not the death and destruction of people abroad. And humanity is no longer the sole species that has to burn everything and misuse land, mistreat our ancestors to survive. If there's any nostalgia for the times past, this vision is it. It's halftime. We're actually winning. We've invested hundreds of billions of dollars into clean energy, tens of thousands of new projects springing up in just the past few years. Labor unions, environmentalists, community groups, ethical businesses, politicians working together for the good of humanity and for our own families. We aren't martyrs here, right? We're mothers, fathers, friends, neighbors, just trying to do our part for our loved ones. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, the most significant climate legislation in world history, and it has shown us what's possible. Clean energy jobs grew twice as fast as the overall economy since 2023. Unionization rates in clean energy are outpacing fossil, reflecting the quality of jobs this transition creates. And we're looking at 18.3 million jobs more. That's nuts. It's super sick. Plus, 85% of these funds are in communities and likely can't be repealed. It's already committed. And we have the opportunity to leverage these funds for additional state and local wins via state and local legislation. So, Green New Deal Network state investments amounted to 13 new transformative laws since 2023 and also big electoral victories. And we aren't stopping now. And let's talk about the cost because climate deniers love that topic. In 2024, there are $27 billion of climate disasters in the US, costing $182.7 billion and taking 580 or 568 lives. Uh, the hurricane uh, Helena alone caused 79.6 billions of dollars in damage. The economic and human toll of disasters make it clear we can't afford to delay action any longer. I know this personally because of the 2023 Maui fires is costing my home island billions and has displaced thousands of families like mine. So I will fight to save as many communities as I can from suffering the same fate. Next time someone asks how much clean energy transition will cost, tell them how much inaction have already costed us. See, I come from an environmental justice community where it would rain sugarcane ash on us as kids during recess. The smell was toxic, like melting plastic. We all had asthmatic symptoms. We couldn't breathe well. And over the years, I've worked with many who've had it worse. Right next to oil refineries, couldn't even shower in the water. The worst kept secret, though, is that these environmental justice communities like ours are actually necessary for these extractive industries to survive. Big oil and the fossils that run the fossil industry only succeed, they only profit when they have communities like ours to sacrifice. It's macabre, but the silver lining there is that if we stand up, if we cut off that lifeline, if we refuse to be sacrificed and reclaim our blocks, these giant corporations will ultimately cease to exist. Our greatest pain is our greatest leverage. So they keep us in despair to keep us from rising up. Trump and his dweeby friends stoke our anger by making us angry at each other to keep the working people divided. But I'm not telling you to smile. If you can't smile, don't. Get that toxic, oppressive, chauvinistic positivity out of here. Be angry, but don't be angry at your neighbor. Be angry with your neighbor. But that means getting to know them first. That's our role right now, not just as strategists, researchers, advocates, pollsters, funders, politicals, but as real life community organizers, not just on these calls, but on the street. So I encourage you to leave this call after everyone speaks and find a way to talk to someone new. Talk to that person in your life that you see slipping and falling in that Trumpy rabbit hole. Because I know that elders on this call, like Judith and Bill, have been fighting for longer than I have, and I'm just a part of a long legacy. But I don't want to leave my two kids with a fight. I want to leave them with a foundation. I want to build up this movement, not just to build our personal reputations with nonprofits that come and go, but to create institutions that live on through generations. So when my children are my age, they don't have to figure out how to build something new again. We need sustenance and durability like the societies of our foremothers. I need to count on you, partners in philanthropy, organizers, activists, to put aside organizational interests, sectorial differences, and think big. Stay engaged, stay united. Join us for a day of action next month. Join the Climate Action Campaign in Atlanta, Pittsburgh, Detroit, or if you live somewhere else, let our team at GNDN know, and we'll show you how to join or lead an event near you. There's going to be, opportunities, links in the chat. But now is the moment for you to step the hell up. We have we'll put forums in the chat. We'll be sending out toolkits after this. We need you together. Together we can rebuild the power that we need in order to win. So thank you for being here. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to Saul to introduce the next speakers. I'm Kaniela Ng. I'm honored to be with you all. Aloha ina kako.
Thanks so much, Kaniela. Hey, everybody, it's great to be on with you. Um, Delighted to be in community with you all. I'm Saul Levin. I'm the campaigns and political director at the Green New Deal Network. And I wanted to take a moment before we jump into our exciting speaker lineup to thank some of the folks who made this possible today. We first of all want to thank the Movement Infrastructure Project. These are the folks who are behind setting up the infrastructure for this webinar and most protests and actions in DC that you see. Thank you to that entire collective and team who bring the stage or the audio or whatever. We really appreciate you, and we're going to need you more than ever in the next few years. We also wanted to thank the 50 organizations who co-hosted and helped set up this call, many of whom are speaking this evening. Unfortunately, I probably, if I read through all of them, we will not finish the call on time. So I'll just thank a few. Thanks to the Climate Action Campaign, the Chesapeake Climate Action Network, NextGen, and some of the other organizations who put in a lot of time. Thanks to 198 Methods and other groups who really turned out dozens and dozens of people today to talk about the future of climate action. To quickly frame some of what we're going to hear about today, we're hosting this call with so many friends because we can't wait around, right? There's 4 years of Donald Trump coming. He's threatening, about how he's going to make it longer and he's never going to go anywhere. But we need wins on climate in 2025. We need wins on public transportation in 2025. We need wins on building and creating union jobs in 2025. And we as a community intend to secure those wins. It's never been easy. It wasn't easy when people were attacking communists in, the middle of the 20th century. It wasn't easy when people were turning against civil rights leaders in the 1960s. It's never been easy, and it's not going to be easy now. But the biggest dream of Trump and his billionaire cabinet is for us to get discouraged and give up because it feels impossible. And so we wanted to create a space for us to hear from different leaders who are processing in real time about what we can do and start organizing together to build power that we've never seen before, to invite new people in, to invite new ideas in, to question ourselves and how we can be better organizers and how we can build a future that every person deserves. Because we believe as a community that we can overcome the power of billionaires. We believe that they're going to misstep. And if we're prepared and organized, we can take those opportunities and win. With that, I'm going to pass it to our first guest tonight, who is a dear friend of many on the call. Please join me in welcoming Margie Alt from the Climate Action Campaign.
Thank you, Saul. And thanks, Kaniela. Great to see you. Great to see everybody. What a nice way to spend day number 2 finally ending. It's been long already, and we have, 363 plus 3 years left to go. Climate Action Campaign is a coalition of national groups working on federal climate, and I am so happy to be here with you all tonight because of who you are, because of your courage, because of your passion, and your unwavering commitment to stand strong for climate. Look, success over the next few years is going to mean taking on some of the most powerful special interests in the world. But I have a feeling that this call is filled with people and the energy to do just that. The stakes are immense. We all know that our climate, our communities, our families, our economy, our democracy, all under attack. But I'm sure that everybody on this call has somebody personally who's been affected by the hurricanes and the flooding in North Carolina recently, or the tragic fires in Los Angeles, or the 100 days over 100 degrees this summer in Phoenix, or the fires in Maui. We all are experiencing climate change now, and that means that everyone has some skin in this game. 2024 was the hottest year on record, and we know that extreme weather and all its costs are only going to get worse until we make it better. With all the federal levers of power under Donald Trump's influence and all the resources of the fossil fuel interests arrayed against us, we probably can't save everything at the federal level. But we will be fighting to save every single thing that we can. We will fight to save some of the critical programs from the Inflation Reduction Act. And I'm thinking about the tax credits that are helping churches around the country put up solar panels. And I'm thinking about the Justice 40 programs that are helping communities of color become more resilient. But I'm also thinking about the standards that EPA and Department of Energy put forward that are helping to protect our health by limiting soot pollution and carbon pollution from the power sector. And of course, we will also be fighting to defend electrification of our transportation systems, because we all know in this country, transportation is the sector that causes the most climate pollution. So here's the game plan. We have to unify the climate community around our top priorities. We have to band together with our champs in Congress, and we have to push out a strong message that will help rally the whole movement and the public. We have to show people the real costs, the human costs of the cynical policies that Trump and his cronies are pushing. And we have to enliven them with the actual benefits of a clean energy economy and healthier air and healthier water. We all been around the block. We know stories are what move people. So let's tell our stories as loudly and proudly as we can. And let's make sure that we're giving people who are deeply affected by these problems directly a platform for telling their stories too, whether they're the stories of pain and lost homes and health problems, or the stories of great new union jobs and cleaner air and of thriving local economy. Look, our vision at the Climate Action Campaign, and probably yours too, is a world that is powered by clean energy, where communities thrive because they have clean air and clean water, they have good health, and they have good job opportunities. And from where I sit, this isn't just a dream, it's actually a necessity, and I believe it can be a reality. Across our organizations, across our communities, and our movements, we are building something that is bigger and better than the sum of its parts. And that's a future that's rooted in justice, in a healthy environment, and a clean and sustainable economy. The Trump administration's agenda isn't hidden, and it sure isn't subtle. They're all about pushing power and profit for their few over what's good for the rest of us. And of course, they have more money, and they have more platforms, and they have bigger platforms, and they have more access. But we have two superpowers that they can only dream of. Superpower number one, we are right. Whether you believe in science and or public opinion or morality, you're still right if you support fighting the climate crisis. That's superpower number one. And superpower number two, we have each other. So please, do not ever forget that the power is in our hands. Reach out to your networks, mobilize your communities, talk to your friends and your neighbors, and please, no matter what they do, remain unwavering in your commitment to fighting the climate crisis and to advocacy. Every letter, every phone call, every email, every rally matters. Together, we're building a wave of activism that cannot be ignored. We have rallies happening in a number of states. We have millions of stickers to share. We want to be in community with you and with everybody else that you're in community with to solve this problem. This is the fight of our lives, but it is also our moment to rise. The challenges are huge and the odds aren't really that great. But remember that history is made by those people who show up. And for the past 4 years, we have shown up together and we have won huge progress in this country and for the world. So please, let's continue to fight with everything that we have for everything and everyone whom we love. The future's at risk. The world is watching us. And please, please do not let us back down. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to the Green New Deal Network and all the other partners that are helping make this possible. And thank you for sticking together in this fight. I know if we do, we can all win.
Thanks so much, Margie. It's so great being in movement with you and all you do to bring everyone together. And on showing up, we're gonna I'd like to introduce Christina from Next Gen, who's been getting young folks to show up for climate for a minute now. To you, Christina.
Thanks so much, and thanks, Margie and everybody else. So my name is Cristina Sensun Ramirez, coming to you from Austin, Texas, and I'm the proud executive director of Next Gen America. It's the country's largest organization mobilizing young people to vote. We were started 12 years ago with the premise and understanding that if we could mobilize the largest, most diverse, and progressive generational voting bloc in the country at scale, young people, we could help tackle the biggest crisis of our time. And over the last several years, we've seen young people really start to flex their power. And for years, people said young people won't turn out and vote. You can't win on climate policy. And a decade later, of course, we saw the largest youth voter turnout in American history and the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. And that wasn't done alone by NextGen. That was done by a movement, of course, of organizations and individuals acting together, calling on our representatives and the Biden administration to act on climate change. So I think we have to remember, first off, how much we have won over the last few years, that the Inflation Reduction Act, because of many people organizing on this call, won historic investment in environmental justice projects across the country, many of which are moving forward, that we also won hundreds of thousands of good, clean jobs created, that we won a new way of tackling the climate crisis that also supported unions and working people. I am so proud that I have a car that I get to drive around that's an electric car that was made by the United Auto Workers, by our brothers and sisters in the labor movement that earned a good living wage with benefits, in part because of the Inflation Reduction Act. So we have to remember everything that's already in movement because of the organizing and hard work that everyone has done on this call. And I think many of us has always said this: the IRA was not the end, it was just the beginning. And that especially young people that represent the largest, most diverse voting bloc in American history, they are on our side. That young voters, young Americans, overwhelmingly, Republican or Democrat or independent, want action on climate change. That some polling shows that upwards of 80% of young Americans are concerned and worried about the climate crisis. So we have to keep organizing in those communities. And of course, yesterday, and moving forward is very hard. Let's not sugarcoat it. That on Trump's first day, he signed an order that directly defies most of our basic desires on this call. With one flippant stroke of a pen, he has allowed corporations to further poison our planet. That it's clear he's putting oil and big fossil fuel industry executives and their desires ahead of America's young people and the American people in our planet. So this is a tough time, but I think we have to remember that progress is never linear. And this may surprise some folks, but at NextGen, we never say that electoral politics or voting is the only way you make change. Now, we do say it is the most basic thing you must do, but it's definitely not the only thing you should do. So find an organization on this call and make it your political home that are, go march, protest, and engage in civil disobedience with our amazing brothers and sisters at Sunrise. Go work and volunteer with the Green New Deal, who has helped drive forward EJ strategies and projects, many of that are being implemented across the country now. And organize and volunteer with NextGen. Start a chapter at your school, because we do have multiple strategies to move forward at the local level. That means city, county, school boards still, and at the state level. And remember, yes, we lost the last election, but there's a federal election coming, and now is the time to start organizing it for it. You know, at NextGen, we don't put our hope in any one single politician or party. We put our hope in America's young people. And there's only one way forward, and that is to organize and fight back. And again, there's multiple ways to do that. So find someone on this call that really speaks to how you want to organize in this moment. Lastly, I just wanted to share a quick story. I think many of us come from communities that are directly impacted. Of course, everyone is now impacted, but also communities, frontline communities and communities of color that have long suffered the consequences of an exploitive economic model that both exploited our people and our planet. And last year, I just wanted to share a brief story about my grandmother in Mexico that passed away. And in many indigenous cultures, including the Perepucha that my family comes from, Michoacan, we believe that dreams hold sacred knowledge. And just a few weeks after my grandmother had died, and she actually asked to be buried just in linen, she said she wanted to only return to the earth as simply as she had came. And after a few weeks she passed, she visited me a dream. And she told me, I know you are so angry because you think the wrong people have won in history, but I want you to know that you're wrong. And I got really mad in my dream at my grandmother because I said, how can you say that the wrong people did have not won? And I was like, look at how they've stolen our land and destroyed so much of our planet, and they've exploited workers in our community and farmers. And she said, you're wrong. They haven't won because the story is not over. That our way of life of being connected to and working with each other will once again be the future. Because this way of life of destroying the earth, of our water, our planet, and each other, it is not sustainable. So you don't have to believe in the power of dreams or what my grandmother's spirit told me. But I do know that many of us that on this call that come from communities that have long suffered the pain and true costs of exploitive economic models, again, that try to steal our land, language, to even enslave us, to break our ties with our families and culture, that these are the same forces that believe they could exploit us and our land without consequences. And that our ancestors fought back. And many of them never gave hope up, even in the darkest of times. And so that our very existence right now on this call and that we're organizing right now, I think is a testament to their love and their determination. So it's with that kind of power and historical understanding that we're going to keep organizing and fighting back and voting and building community, that we have to remember how much our movement has grown, not just in the United States, but globally over the last decade, that we actually are winning, that more and more people are on our side than are against us, that we have the people power, and that we are continuing to build the political power. So for me, right now, the moment that I see is a call to action, a time to double down and make sure we grow even more until our numbers are insurmountable and our power is insurmountable. And the fact that they're trying to roll back our gains is just showing to me how powerful we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. We appreciate you and your whole movement of organizing. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our dear friend, Congresswoman Delia Ramirez from the 3rd Congressional District in the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Sal. It is so good to be with all of you. I was taking notes here as Marjorie and as Christina were sharing, because as I think about the moment that we currently are in, I am very clear that the only way we get through this moment is through organizing. It's through solidarity. It's through unity. It's through doubling down. And it's really encouraging each other to understand that we are here together, that we are organizing locally at the state level and federally for the world and the future that we deserve. So I just want to thank you for having me on. I just have a minute or two. I have a meeting with a couple of colleagues in a few moments, but I wanted to say to you that it could really feel, especially when you're walking through the halls of Congress, as you're living in full despair. You continue to hear one interview after the other, and even as I've done my own interviews, and being asked what I think about what the president is promising, his executive orders, and how far back he's taking us, right? As you say, drill, baby, drill, and laugh at it. Oh, you and I both know the consequences, right, of this moment and what he's doing. And it's really easy for us to feel that despair and feel like there's very little for us to do. But you've been hearing from others here, and it's why we're organizing on this call today. This is a moment where we have to be very clear. We have to be politically clear about our purpose, our collective, and how we fight back. You and I both know that the climate crisis is impacting every single aspect of our life, every one of them. It doesn't matter, the issue is interconnected, right? And we know that the Green New Deal is that response, right, to this moment. Yet I serve with members of Congress that won't even wear a green congressional pin because somehow they believe, oh my gosh, that must be a Green New Deal pin. My response is like, oh my gosh, you're terrified to have anything that would represent the environment and the planet that you hope for your children and your grandchildren. But that is the moment that we're living in, right? Where people are doing everything they can in these most recent executive orders. They're doing everything to undo the progress that you have worked so hard to win on to protect our communities and to be able to combat the effects of climate change. And it is why that I believe that in this Congress, we have to reintroduce the bills that we introduced last Congress. We have to make sure that we're bringing people in, that people understand this moment and what they can do, because we can't be immobilized by this moment. It's why I am ready to reintroduce the Green New Deal for public housing. We know the impact that will have as we're creating affordable housing, but also creating jobs, as we're investing 162 to $234 billion over 10 years. Now, I'm not naive. You and I both know that a bill like this will not pass this Congress. But it is the work that we are doing to prepare ourselves and organize ourselves and get the co-sponsors necessary so that when Democrats have the majority, there is no excuse that we're passing these bills. And it's why we have to continue to fight for the Green New Deal for public schools, the Green New Deal for Health Act, the Environmental Justice for All Act. You and I both know that investing in this kind of work is guaranteeing a future for generations to come. But the only way that we move forward is for our governments at every single level to be investing in our communities, which is why I'm so excited to hear Christina talk about the work that we're doing locally. Young people in our schools organizing themselves, because this moment also requires for us to develop coordinated strategies where we do have Green New Deal champions like we do in Illinois and other states to make sure that they're doing everything to protect the programs, the clean energy legislation that they have in fact passed. And let me wrap up in saying this to you. It's only going to get harder. I got on that flight this morning and I had to fight everything in my being to make it to that Capitol. Because everything we care deeply about, especially those most vulnerable in this moment, are under attack. It is exactly why you're on this call right now. Because you and I have a responsibility to make sure that every single member of Congress, every single elected official, and every person in any role of decision-making is doing everything in their power to fight back, to push back, and to ensure that we're not allowing the profiteering of these billionaires that are destroying our planet be the real and the new status quo. So I want you to know that I am going to be a champion with you, that I'm going to look to you to lead and to organize, and that I am ready to continue to be in this fight with you for Scarlett Rose Ramirez, for Zoe Ramirez, for Micah Ramirez, and for every child and every person in our country and our world. So let's keep organizing, let's keep fighting, and I'm ready to do that with you. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Representative. And thank you for being a shining example of moving governance where, you're one with the movement. I think that's really rare and really should be emulated a lot more across the Capitol and state legislatures everywhere. And speaking of state legislatures everywhere, I have the pleasure to introduce my indigenous tita, Katie Chavez, who organized with me locally in Hawaii before she became the director of the Climate Justice Alliance.
Thank you so much, Kaniela, and hello to everybody on the call. I'm calling in from Okoto Waktai Sakum, known as Many Come Together Country, and also known as Bozeman, Montana. You know, the climate justice movement is more than just woke environmentalism. It traces its roots back to the civil rights, American Indian and Black liberation movements of the 60s and 80s, and even further back to the abolitionist movement and other fights against colonization, genocide, dating back centuries. And in 1991, at the first People of Color Environmental Leadership Summit that was held in Washington, D.C., and organized by many of our EJ leaders, they would become the founding members of Climate Justice Alliance. And we're nothing without our communities and without each other, and we all have a role to play. And as the new executive director of the Climate Justice Alliance, an alliance now comprised of nearly 100 frontline, EJ, and networking supporting organizations, our power comes from our communities, our roots, and our ability to see and not react. Our members are committed to our ecological liberation and to each other, and through our work, we honor those that have come before us and work day in and day out for our collective liberation and future generations. Something that I want folks to hold and take seriously is while we continue to forge coalitions and cross-sector movements, it can't be at the sacrifice of those who have always been the scapegoats. The political pressure cooker coming out of this administration is a sobering reminder for all of us to recognize that we have a deep collective and political power, and that the organizations on this call, as well as the folks on this call and those who will watch this recording, we all have the responsibility and the privilege now more than ever to safeguard our communities and those hit first and worst, not by just climate chaos, but by white supremacy, corporate greed, environmental racism, anti-trans legislation, anti-immigrant attacks, just to name a few. And these are our communities, and these are our workers, our families, our tribes, our neighborhoods. And the collective community power is what we must strengthen and safeguard in the months ahead. And we need to do it while listening to our critical thinkers, our magic makers, our grassroots leaders, our elders, and our youth. And at Climate Justice Alliance, our power comes from the grassroots, and the grassroots works to make sure that power goes to the people. And right now in California, you know, we're hearing reports from our members on the ground, and we're hearing hope and inspiration amid the devastation. They're caring for each other, leaning into existing and creating new mutual aid networks that can't be stopped. And that is what grassroots frontline power and organizing looks like. We have to center the community needs and solutions now, not later. And our communities literally hold the solutions that leave nobody behind and sacrifice no one in the name of public good. We also have members organizing against ICE raids, members safeguarding solar projects that the new administration has in its sight. And we're seeing the attempts to scatter our energy and our movements. And we're preparing for the attacks, and we won't let them deter us. Grassroots work is remembering that the power to survive and thrive is within our DNA. Our models and ways of being are deeply rooted in our shared values, and they continue to guide us. It's the family of four that lives on 25,000 in the Roxbury and still finds time to go to the transit organizing meeting. It's the family that is 5 generations deep into organizing at APEN. It's the local abuelita that runs a panaderia and feeds the youth free food before they're heading to their organizing meeting. And it's our movement elders that don't have retirement funds because they sunk their life savings into this work. It's the Indigenous elder that is 90 years old and continues to mobilize on the front lines. The grassroots are the people who are going to continue to do the work, whether it falls under an NGO or not. It's the people who are the lifeline, the ones that live light fingerprints, whose labor often goes unseen, the people who work to actualize a just transition every day. And I hope that our communities, our grassroots communities, are held and that they have the spaciousness to make decisions free of guilt, and that we can do everything that we can to contribute in meaningful ways. Supporting the grassroots is critical, and it's a holistic strategy, and we can all play our part. Now is the time to fight for those bold solutions and fight for solidarity from and with each other, to put our money where our mouth is and really support environmental justice grassroots communities and step back so we can move forward with their leadership. As a closing thought, I want us to remember that we all don't need to come up with a solution at scale, right? Grassroots power comes from aggregating all of our frontline and neighborhood-based solutions to scale. So please trust in and invest in the grassroots. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie, for your powerful words and leadership. It's great to be in community with you. Now we're going to pass it off to our dear friend, the Climate Engagement Director for the Kamala Harris campaign, Camila Thorndike. Take it away.
All right. Tough act to follow, Katie. I just am so inspired by what you said. And as a lifelong, I still consider myself a grassroots climate justice organizer. I couldn't agree more about solutions where they are. And in that spirit, I want to start by saying thank you to everyone, the fellow speakers on this call who gave so much to the campaign, to hundreds of you who are on this call tonight, who left it all out on the field. It truly was the honor of my life to spend that 2.5-month sprint helping bring together our various movements across the climate justice, clean energy, conservation, toxins, water, animals, a huge array of interests and activists who came sort of out of the woodworks, honestly, and threw down. And so there's a few folks I just want to name of the 550 people who actually gave a ton of time. We had Jake Schwartz and Will McConnell and Natan Goldberg, Paige Atchison and others who formed such a great core team. So many of the kitchen cabinet members, organizations, again, on this call, Saul, Aru, Tracy, Margie, so many people gave their all. We had media folks who came to write op-eds, place letters to the editor, get social media engines cranking. Michael Green, Leslie Talmadge, Monica Medina, Monica Dean, Sarah Jory, Jacob Berman, Sotomayor. And then folks who just deployed to the battleground states with like sometimes a few hours notice and decided to go for 3 weeks. Praveen Kathpal was the first one to do it into Georgia and was followed by so many others who sacrificed a huge amount of their time. Lake, Aruni, Julia organized phone banks that contacted 217,000 voters. And we had so many others who I can't even go through naming right now, but I just want to say thank you. Because to me, it was a testament to the growing strength and beauty of our movements and gives me the hope, all the hope I need that we're going to weather this era and be able to pull off what's needed in the years to come. And so last on that, I just want to note that all of that work made a difference. I know right now we can feel hopeless and that, oh my gosh, was it all for naught? No, where we fought, we moved the needle. The Senate seats that were protected were in large part because of this work in the battleground states where we fought. And the swing towards Trump in the battlegrounds was 3+ points less than the national average. So that shows me organizing works, and it's going to matter even more in this era of such a fragmented and distorted information landscape, which I believe was the #1 reason that we had a tough time, right, in this election. And so despite climate, environmental justice, clean energy not having featured front and center in the election, the rapid mobilization of our communities shows me how strong our movements have become. And now the task is to organize with unlikely allies to defend the progress we've made. That progress, the Inflation Reduction Act, is the result of decades of hard work, and we need to protect it. The campaign showed me that we can. There's a few notes I want to highlight. The investment tax credits and the production tax credits, huge amount of money flowing for clean energy that we upped. The fact that the Democratic Party does stand still for workers is reflected in so many of the adders that were passed in that bill for domestic content and prevailing wage and labor protections, building a clean energy economy that is by and for workers. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, direct pay, low-income community benefits, huge amount of benefits going to disadvantaged communities and households, up to $14,000 of direct benefits that we all can claim, whether to get an EV or switch to heat pumps or install solar on your roof. The Loan Program Office monies that flowed to power new technologies like virtual power plants, which will prevent the build out of new gas peaker plants and coal. That's going to ensure resilience. And we need to defend, we could go on for all night, right? But we need to defend the entire architecture of this law and what our movements fought for, integrating social justice, labor protections, worker rights, and the incredible economic benefits of a clean energy transition. Because this is 1.5 million jobs over a decade that's coming if we can see all these benefits through. 2/3 of those investments are in Republican districts, which is the promise to depoliticize so many of these benefits and make them actually politically resilient, with manufacturing coming back to America and the ability to tell these jobs and cut costs for consumers. So what I want to emphasize is that we need you, because not all of even the money that's already flowed and is going out the door needs to be implemented in a detailed way. And the way that we need to step up as a community is to tell the stories of success. And this is sort of picking up on what other speakers have noted. With the row of tech bros in the front of the inauguration, Trump has very clearly sided with the billionaire class. We know that the Inflation Reduction Act and our movements stand for everyone in an equitable, clean energy transition that's going to lift everyone up, right? And so we need to show folks that we are with them and find the stories of success as they are rolling out. You might think, oh, there's all these green groups, they're going to find those stories, they're going to get it to the Hill, they're going to get it to the press. No, there's so much more money flowing and still will flow than we can actually track. So my ask to you is to actually pay attention in your communities. When you hear someone who got solar panels, who can now afford an EV, whose uncle went back to a factory that just opened in their small town that wouldn't have happened without the Inflation Reduction Act, please find and tell those stories. There's not enough people doing this. And we need to know that this is not a theoretical benefit. It's actually lowering bills. It's actually creating jobs. This is an all hands on deck moment to get those stories to the organizations that are bringing them to the Hill, and bringing them to the press. And I know there's going to be an architecture that's built out around this call. Please use those channels. Find me, find Saul. As you hear these stories, we need to tell them. And the last notes are who is telling them, right? We're going to need to make common cause with the messengers who can reach the Republicans who are holding the levers of power right now. Small business, industry, local government leaders, especially if they're conservative, with a message of bill savings and job creation. And the silver lining here of this messaging shift is that these are the messages that we need to use to reach the Americans across the board who might not have believed that this bill was for them and that Democrats can stand with them as well. So I just want to say thank you. Jump in, get organized. We can win so much more when we show that what we've won already is real, it's happening, and it's helping. And instead of asking, why me? Why not you? Why not you be the person who steps in and makes this real? So thank you.
Thank you so much, Camila. We appreciate you and all of your hustle. I just want to flag for folks, there's been a lot of interest in getting involved in organizing in the chat. Between the Green New Deal Network, Climate Action Campaign, Lead Locally, and many other groups that helped organize this call, there's amazing opportunities coming up in Pittsburgh, Detroit, Atlanta, and other cities to get involved in organizing climate rallies and pushes for new state and local legislation. So check out the links in the chat. We'll have more to say about that. But the idea coming out of this call is that we're going to organize together and take this momentum into securing local wins on climate this year. And so even if you live in Oklahoma, is one state I saw in the chat, or California, and you're like, I don't know anyone in my area who cares about this. The goal for all of our groups is to connect you with other folks who care about these things so we can organize together. And with that, I'm going to pass it to our friend Sam Smith, who is the strategic advisor on clean energy jobs to the president at the AFL-CIO. Thanks, Sam.
Hey Saul, how you doing? Hey everybody, good evening. How are we? I've got some union members in the participants. You can make yourselves known in the chat. So my name's Sam Smith. I work for the AFL-CIO. We represent 15 million organized workers with 61 affiliates. I'll say a bit more about them in a second. We have structures in all 50 states plus Puerto Rico. Hey Tracy, how you doing? And 450 central labor councils in like most of the major metros in the United States, right? So here we are. Our unions, our members, they are in all parts of the economy, and they're in everything from clean energy to fossil fuels to service, transportation, manufacturing, healthcare, teachers, government workers of different kinds. That's us. We're everybody. So I want to say a few words, just pick up on a few things that I've heard earlier from other speakers, because I think those are important words for all of us. So one is overwhelmed, right? All of these executive orders came down. We all probably feeling like, what is happening? It's a kind of shock and awe strategy from the right to demobilize us, as you said, Kaniela, to make us feel depressed, make us feel like we don't need to show up and show out. What other things are we feeling? Well, we're feeling like our story is not over, right? Because we know, all of us who've worked on these issues for shorter or longer times, or who've organized, that you're not done even when you just have suffered what feels like a crushing defeat. I heard from you, Margie, and hey, Margie, nice to see you again. I heard that we know that we're right. And in the union movement, we do know we're right. We're fighting for workers. We're fighting for rights. We're fighting for everybody who deserves the life-changing potential of a good union job, and for workers who are not our members and who should be our members. And then I heard a lot about organizing. And finally, I heard a few people shouting out unions and good union jobs. And I want to say that made me feel pretty great. So we're looking at a government by billionaires, for billionaires, and with billionaires. This is not a government that is for us, for workers. It's anti-union and anti-worker. And they showed us all of that yesterday with all of those executive orders that came down. Because what were the first things that Donald Trump did when he got into office? He went after federal workers, federal employees, people who work in the Veterans Administration, taking care of our veterans, people who work in the Social Security office, making sure that families get their checks, people who are working all over the country to make sure that we have clean air and water. And who else did he go after? He went after immigrants. He went after our siblings, our brothers and sisters, people in our communities, promising mass deportation, putting people in camps, doing things that will shock the conscience, splitting families. So we know what these people are all about. They are not about us. They are against us. They have threatened to fire several 100,000 federal workers. They've threatened to round up and deport millions and millions of immigrants. And we know that we are against this. We are united as the labor movement. What else do we know? We know that they're going to go after one of the biggest successes that we have seen as a labor movement, and that was the IRA and the IIJA, where we stood shoulder to shoulder, people with whom we might not always agree, right? Like in our movement, not everybody is going to talk to you about climate change. We will always talk to you about the life-changing power of a good union job, but we stood shoulder to shoulder to get these bills across the line. And the results, as you said, Kaniela, have been amazing. So not just all of the jobs created, but all of the good union jobs and union density that is now higher in clean energy than in the economy as a whole, twice as high as the rest of the private sector. A lot of our unions, especially in construction, growing by leaps and bounds, apprenticeship programs that are filled to the brink with all kinds of new workers. So we got a taste of the good life with the IRA and the IIJA, and we want to hang on to that, and we want more. We agree. The IRA was the start. It was not the finish. So where do we go from here? Well, I'll say one thing about the election. If our movement were bigger, we would have won by a landslide, because that is how our members voted. And they voted that way because we talked to them about the things that mattered to them, about kitchen table issues, about their rights as workers, about their rights to overtime, their rights to organize, their rights to collectively bargain. And so in this moment, we're focused on a few things. We're focused on growing our movement. We're focused on organizing. I want to encourage every single one of you who's not yet a union member to hit us up about organizing your workplace. And we're also focused on defending what we won in the IRA and the IIJA, as well as all of our union siblings in the federal government workforce and all of our union siblings who are immigrants and their families. So we're interested in working with people who want to work with us. I know many of you, some of you I knew on the other side, like you, Ellie. Nice to see you again. So please reach out to us. Let us know what your interests are, whether your interests are organizing or just being in movement together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. There's no job like a union job. Can't win it without labor. Thanks for being on with us. And I have the distinct honor to pass it over to my good friend, Aru, who's been leading a lot of impressive work with the Sunrise Movement.
Hey y'all, my name's Aru. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director of the Sunrise Movement. And I'm coming onto this call today angry before anything else. I keep getting these notifications on my phone about all of the ridiculous things that Trump is doing, about the way that the media isn't holding him accountable, about the way that it feels like the Democratic Party isn't holding him accountable. And every single notification is a reminder of how much we have to lose, how precious life and our families and what we're fighting for is. And it's also a reminder that honestly, we shouldn't have lost, that many, many Americans were angry about the price of food, were angry about the fact that housing was unaffordable, were angry that they felt like they lived in a system that wasn't working for them, and they were conned by an egomaniacal right-wing authoritarian who pretended that he would fight for them. And that wasn't true. He doesn't fight for them. He's delivering a billionaire's agenda. Just look at who was seated at his inauguration. Those first 4 billionaires in that first front row are worth over $1 trillion. Donald Trump works for billionaires, not for us. But he managed to con people. And so I'm angry about all that we are being made to suffer through because of the power that has been concentrated in the hands of an elite few. And I'm also reminded of 8 years ago. I joined Sunrise 8 years ago. I was 18 years old. I had just gone through my first presidential cycle. I was desperately looking for anything that would feel like it was big enough to face the problem I was in. And I found myself at a Sunrise training, at the first ever Sunrise training. And for the first time, after all the protests I had gone to, after organizing things on my campus, that Sunrise training was the first time that I had felt like someone was offering a plan that was commensurate with the crisis that we are facing. That was ambitious, that took political power really seriously, that was clear-eyed about how much we needed to win, and that was also able to actually just jump in and do the organizing work. It inspired me, and I threw my everything into Sunrise. I dropped out of college. I spent all my time knocking doors and skipping classes and taking Zoom calls, literally anywhere you could imagine. And it paid off so much. In the 8 years since Sunrise launched, we, along with the rest of you, along with everyone in this call, took climate from number 17 in political priorities to a top 3 political issue, made sure that every Democrat running for president in 2020 was talking about a climate plan and the Green New Deal, actually organized a youth electoral force big enough and strong enough that we were able to shape President Biden's climate agenda. And then we won. We won the Inflation Reduction Act. We won the American Climate Corps. We changed the way that climate is being talked about today. These were a mark of movements. And I say that because I think particularly right now, there is this sense that people believe that movements don't work. And that just isn't true. That is a right-wing talking point. That is an elite talking point meant to keep us defeated and divided and staying at home. And that's one of the biggest things we have to avoid in this moment. The truth is that the climate movement is in such a uniquely powerful position in this administration because it's one of the areas where Trump's actions are the least popular and yet where he is going the hardest. And what that means is that we have a responsibility to the rest of the progressive movement, to the rest of the country, to actually take what Trump is doing and make sure that we can use it to turn the American public against him, to actually use climate as a wedge issue that can win elections in 2026 and 2028. That's the type of campaigning that we need to do. And if we do that successfully, we can usher in a new era of government where in 2029, we can have a president who's actually campaigning on Green New Deal issues, where we can change political reality and be winning things like a Green New Deal for public housing, like a Green New Deal for public transit, and never lose sight of all the things that we are trying to win. In order to do that, Sunrise is like thinking about the next 4 years in 3 core ways. One is that we're trying to expose Trump's corruption literally anywhere that we can. Just last week, a handful of young volunteers in DC interrupted Chris Wright's confirmation hearing. Chris Wright is an oil CEO, making sure that people know that when Trump tries to put his fossil fuel friends in power, young people aren't just going to take it lying down, being unafraid to actually speak truth to power there. Number 2, climate disasters are getting worse and worse every day, and it is our job to use those moments to expose the urgency of the climate crisis and make sure that climate change feels like a kitchen table issue. I'm taking this call from LA, where I flew in to help our LA hub respond to the fires, and where several members were camped outside of Fossil Fuel HQ for days, calling on the fossil fuel companies to pay for their share of the LA fires. That is the type of work we need to be highlighting, actually pointing to the villain in this situation and making sure that we don't go year after year calling fires and hurricanes natural disasters, but actually point to the true culprits of this crisis. And 3, we need to tell the story of what we could win and make sure the Democratic Party is campaigning on it. So all across the country, Sunrise hubs are campaigning on things like free and affordable public transit, like making sure that we have public parks, that we have affordable housing. Our high school hub in Colorado, there might win the first statewide piece of Green New Deal legislation with a Green New Deal for schools this year. And making sure that we're constantly articulating the vision for how we could live in a better world will help people actually choose that better world. That's how we're thinking about next year's. The thing I want to leave us with is, if we are to have any hope at truly winning, at truly turning the tides of society, at moving our economy away from the most powerful industry in history, the fossil fuel industry, we must build up the organizing power that it takes to actually disrupt the people in power. And if you look through history, that has constantly been true. If you've ever been grateful for a Saturday and a Sunday on a weekend, that is the power of organizers who have laid their bodies on the line, labor organizers who laid their bodies on the line to make sure that we won a weekend. If you've ever been grateful for Social Security, this is not very known, but in the 1930s, tens of thousands of veterans from World War I came to DC and illegally occupied parts of DC, demanding payments from their time in service. And that was a huge part of what led to Social Security. So much of what is good in the world, so much of what we have won, so much of what we are grateful for, if you are queer, if you are Black and brown, so much of what allows us to exist as people has been won through organizing and has been won through the type of disruptive organizing that makes the people in power have no choice but to say yes to us. That's the type of organizing that we need to be setting out to be doing in the next few years. The United Auto Workers has put out a call for unions across the country to align their contracts to expire in 2028, calling for people to actually strike at the scale that this moment in history requires so that we can win protections for workers, for climate, for democracy. That's the type of disruptive power that our movements need to be thinking about and engaging with and arcing towards if we are to have any hope to win. I'm honored to be in it with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Aru, for your powerful words. We appreciate you, and we'll be organizing together. Our next speaker needs absolutely no introduction. I remember where I was when I read his Global Warming's Terrifying New Math article in 2011. Please join me in welcoming Bill McKibben.
Well, thank you so much. And what an honor it is to get to be with such an amazing crew of people today. Truthfully, I don't know exactly how much I have to offer here. I'm an old guy, and I organize with other old folks at Third Act. And, it's possible that we're just not completely suited for this new world that we're entering into. Watching Elon Musk get up there and give a Nazi salute was so weird to me. I'm not old enough to remember World War II, but I knew lots and lots of people who fought in it. And just the idea that now at the highest levels of our country, there are people, paying homage to Hitler and imagining fascism and things is disconcerting in the extreme, and makes me wonder if I quite know how to work in this world exactly. On the other hand, I think it's been really interesting to watch what Trump and his crew is doing and why. The fossil fuel industry worked harder on this election than they've ever worked on an election before. They poured far more money in. And the reason is that they're very worried. And the reason that they're very worried is that in at least one way, we're in a far better position than we've ever been in before in this fight. Over the last decade, the price of clean energy from the sun and the wind has dropped about 90%. Sometime in the last few years, it crossed some invisible line where it became the cheapest way to make power on this earth is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. And that's got to be terrifying if you have trillions of dollars in oil reserves down there that the world doesn't actually need anymore if we could make this transition fast. And we're beginning to see the possibilities in the few places that are really trying. California last year was producing day after day after day, more than 100% of the electricity it was using from renewable energy. At night, batteries, which hadn't even existed on that grid 3 years ago, were the biggest source of supply night after night. As a result, California in 2024 used 25% less natural gas to produce electricity than they used in 2023. If you're a natural gas executive, that number puts a chill in your heart. That's the fifth biggest economy in the world. And it's not just places like that. I can tell you quickly the story about Pakistan last year, where just people fed up with the high price of electricity and bad service, and with cheap Chinese solar panels on their border, put up within 6 months the equivalent of 50% of the nation's electric grid just in solar panels on top of their roofs and factories and stores and homes. Pakistani farmers now are powering the tube wells that run their irrigation systems with solar panels instead of diesel engines. Pakistan used 35% less diesel last year than the year before. These are the kind of changes that can come if we take advantage of the moment where we're at. But we really have to organize to do that because most people still don't quite understand how much things have changed. Even in our world, people still talk about the sun and wind as alternative energy, as if it was kind of the Whole Foods of energy, But in fact, it's the Costco of energy. This is the stuff that's cheap and available off the shelf in bulk. And we've got to take advantage of that fact. It's the main, look, the fossil fuel industry thinks they're entirely protected now. They've got all the protection they could ever need from Donald Trump and the Senate, whatever else. This is their vulnerability. And so we've got to figure out, and we are starting to figure out, ways to really make people understand that. Watch for details in the next few weeks, but Third Act, and I think a lot of other places, we're going to be trying to figure out some big national ways to celebrate where we are and to move people much further down this path. There's no reason that people should have to go on paying absurd prices for energy and absurd prices for insurance and all the other things that the climate crisis is causing. We can turn this around, but it's a matter of organizing to shift the zeitgeist, to shift people's sense of what's normal and natural and obvious. The natural thing to do in the late 2020s is to stop setting things on fire and turn to the power of the sun, which we now know how to use in all its forms. And so our job, I think, in part, is to just upend the whole logic that Trump and Exxon and everybody else are working on and go right around them in a whole different direction and undercut their power just as fast as we can. As I say, what do I know? I'm an old guy, and this is a new and strange world we're in, and I'm eager to take good advice and guidance from all the other people on here who are probably much more with the moment than I am. What a pleasure it is just to get to be with you all, and such thanks for letting me be a little part of this tonight. Take care, all.
Thanks so much, Bill. There's nothing like a Bill McKibben analogy. I actually was in Costco yesterday and I saw a solar company like selling stuff, and they didn't have a pot sticker for me and my kids. I was a little disappointed, but I'm glad that they're actually selling solar there. So it's not just a metaphor. Next, we have someone who's been really a critical inside-outside bridge builder for us in the movement, and that's Ali Zayed, who's a White House National Climate Advisor for President Biden. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Daniela. Thanks, Saul, Margie, Christina, Bill, so many folks, so many friends on this call. I'm technically retired as of yesterday, so mostly I'm swinging by to express my gratitude, in particular to the folks who dialed in from across the country, who've used their time so effectively to bend the arc, and we can see the difference all around us. I just wanted to share 3 big picture thoughts. The first is just take this time. I know it's hard to peel away from the flood of news over the last 24 hours, but take the time, even as you absorb that, and think about how you apply yourself to look at what you built and the fact that it is there and it's there for good. There's 50 Hoover dams worth of clean energy that got built out over the last 4 years. No one's driving around the country pulling those panels out of the ground or those wind turbines out of the sky, reversing our course on the grid. You did that. You helped build union density at twice the rate of unionization in the clean energy economy as the rest of the economy. You did that with your work. Because of what you did, we are planting trees in those very communities that were redlined and are now hotter, experiencing the urban heat island effect because of a legacy of racist housing policy. And in rural communities, 180,000 family farms are now tapping into the opportunity of climate smart agriculture. You did that by centering us on the opportunity that delivers locally and delivers right now. For a long time, folks have been trying to articulate the solution to climate change, a problem that is global and decades in the making, and have a hard time connecting with people. You helped crack the code on organizing by taking that problem, global in nature, decades in the making, and translating into local solutions that deliver for people right away. So take that step back, look at what you built, and realize how incredibly powerful you are. The second is to look at everybody else around you. Just like you feel submerged in information, oftentimes stuff you don't even want pushed to your phone or into your email or now texted to you. There is so much noise, and it is hard to connect the dots. So one of the things people have asked, what can I concretely do to help in this moment? I think it's to connect the dots. You know, there were 50 votes in the House of Representatives over the 2-year period since we passed the Inflation Reduction Act to try to whittle back, roll back parts of the bill, and they fell apart each time. And every single time that happened, I thought, this gives us a little bit more time for there to actually be proof points across America that we can finally lift up. This is that moment. You know, we talk a lot about the 900 factories manufacturing everything from batteries to solar to geothermal to so many other things. But does everybody who lives in the neighborhood of that factory know that that factory is creating opportunity because of a policy that leans into tackling this crisis? There's this great story. I tell it so often, at least my team got tired of it. And it's of Scotty's Diner in this 1,500 person town in the middle of Utah. Scotty's Diner doubled their employees and doubled again because of what the manager calls this geothermal thing being built in her county. That's happening all across the country. And people need to realize that that geothermal thing or that solar thing or that battery thing is there because all of you pushed for it, because there's a crisis and we saw opportunity in solving it, and we have to keep at doing that. You have to help us connect the dots. Otherwise, that noise, it's going to drown out what's going on, and there aren't going to be consequences to the decisions that are made in Washington. The last thing I'll say, and our hearts are heavy, not just because of what's going on in Washington, D.C., but because of what's going on in L.A., where the fires are still burning up neighborhoods, mosques that have been leveled, schools that have been leveled. I've seen so many friends text me photos of their homes, their memories, all gone. Lives, livelihoods, it's heavy stuff. But this is exactly the moment where we have to be hopeful and to lift up. That's hard. That's super hard. But despairing and turning inward, that's what the haters want you to do. The same folks that fed you climate denial now know it's pretty hard to deny that it showed up all in our community. So skepticism in your ability to do something about it is the new du jour. One of the most remarkable people I met in my 4 years was this woman named Andy. She's from Boone, North Carolina. And when Hurricane Milton came barreling through her town, took away so much, she decided to give back. This week, the new president has signed the American Climate Corps out of existence, but Andy from Boone, North Carolina is still out there bringing hope and solutions to a community that needs it so desperately, her community. You have the power. Step back, look at what you built. Cut through the noise, find the signal, and help people connect the dots. And at this moment, when there's all the reason in the world to fall prey to the doom and despair, hope and lift up. We can do this.
Thank you so much, Ali. So much appreciate you. Congrats on day one of retirement. um, really exciting that you're going to keep hustling with us. Next, we're going to have Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari from Arizona. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I know it's with a very heavy heart that we host this conversation tonight, but I hope also after all of these incredible speakers, a call that brings renewed enthusiasm for all of the work that's been done so far on climate change from so many on this call and beyond. As someone who worked on the Paris Climate Accord, the day one attacks on climate and another embrace of drill baby drill by the Trump administration is a complete slap in the face. Actually, the reason I ever ran for office the first go around was because of the first Trump administration and the decision to pull out of Paris the first time after having spent years working on climate policy and making the climate agreement a reality. I will say that amidst all of the horrific news on climate and energy over the last couple of days, having been through that once before, and I know many on the call have been, I do feel like I hope this will bring about just an even bigger wave of non-state climate action than we saw the first go around. Of course, after the 2016 election, we saw the We Are Still In movement. We saw youth climate activism like we've never seen before around the world, and such a push on climate action that now climate action and the transition to clean renewable energy is very much happening. And it's unstoppable. It's going to happen with or without the Trump administration or the US officially being part of the Paris Climate Agreement or not. Before Congress, I was part of the Phoenix City Council and, saw firsthand the great work that Ali and others through the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by this administration. That helped us at the city of Phoenix do so much on climate that never would have been possible even just a couple of years prior. We were able to establish the country's first Office of Heat Response and Mitigation. We were able to pass a bipartisan plan on transportation electrification that is one of the most ambitious in the country. And even with this administration, I don't see that changing. So much of the work that has been done and the movement across cities across the United States, even in red states, is not going anywhere. And I think it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we keep the pressure on not only our governments, but also the private sector and the companies that have made ambitious pledges to do so much. I am excited that I will be serving on the House Natural Resources Committee in Congress and hopefully really focused especially on energy and, putting it all on the line when it comes to standing up to big oil, making it very clear that Donald Trump has made, massive promises to the oil and gas industry, and we cannot let them off the hook and not bring awareness to this and not really put it at the forefront. So I look forward to doing that. Today, I helped introduce a resolution along with Representative Huffman, who is also on the call, condemning Trump's move to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement and urging Congress to prioritize U.S. global leadership. But looking forward to working with all of you on figuring out what more we can do together, because it is very disheartening. I've been in touch with colleagues that I used to work with, and I think what's most disheartening is seeing that the first go around when we pulled out, we were able to kind of call it a fluke. And while we lost trust on the international stage, we came back. And I think it's just going to be so vital that we demonstrate that, again, with or without the administration, climate action in the United States is happening. It will move forward, and it will. And we'll come back even stronger in the midterms and beyond with elected leaders who understand this and are ready to fight. So thank you all so much. Please don't hesitate to get in touch with me or my team if there's anything we can support you with. But we're looking forward to making climate the number one issue that we fight for my district and for the entire country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Representative. Next, we have someone who I really look up to, Dr. Kumi Naidu, who really represents like the intersectional movement of climate, environment, art, human rights, all of it, not just on a domestic lens, but through a transnational lens where understanding that, we're all impacted by each other's actions across the globe. So without further ado, to you, Kumi.
Thank you very much, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm doing this from my airport. So let me start by saying that in the moment of history that we find ourselves in, pessimism is a luxury we simply cannot afford. And the pessimism that justifiably emerges from our analysis, our observations, and our lived experiences can, must, and should be responded to by the optimism of our thought, our action, our courage, our sense of humanity, and so on. Secondly, I would want to say that I'm representing in this call today the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. This is an initiative that is seeking to complement the Paris Climate Accords and agreements. Some of you might know, those who've been around for long, like Bill, will know that for years now, we have been going to the climate negotiations asking for a fab deal. Not a fabulous deal, but a fair, ambitious, and binding deal. And year after year, what we get is a flab deal, F-L-A-B, full of loopholes and BS. And right now, if we do not get countries to commit to a binding agreement, we continue with the madness that we have going on at the COP, where, for example, always the largest delegation to the COP is the fossil fuel lobbyists. Even getting the term fossil fuels mentioned in the climate negotiations took us 28 years, 2 years ago, to get it mentioned for the first time. And given all of that, we have to have some additionality. So where are we with our efforts? We have 16 countries. I'm so sorry about that. We have 16 countries who have endorsed, including 2 fossil fuel exporting countries, Colombia and Timor-Leste. The vision we have is to do what the landmine treaty process, the nuclear non-proliferation process did, which was not rely, even though treaties are only negotiated by national governments, but we need to build the momentum from below. So I'm happy to say that in the US, we have states that are like California that have endorsed the treaty initiative. We have several cities in the US that have already done so, like Philadelphia, for example. And what I'm reminded about was the 4 years that Trump was in power and how US climate advocates dealt with the COP. I believe there was a framing where they used to come with saying, we are still in, meaning that the US is still with the rest of the world. And I think that right now we have to ask ourselves the question, why is it that we are failing, right? And we have to be brutally honest with ourselves and tell no lies and claim no easy victories. And so I think we must be brutally honest in our assessment of why we are at this point with regard to climate. And I would say there are 2 things in particular that has held us back. One is the fact that most of our narratives and our messages and our kind of advocacy has all been aimed at the head, and we've ignored the heart, the body, and soul. And the Steve Bannons and the Donald Trumps of the world bypass the brain and go straight to the heart and weaponize all forms of hate based on identity and so on. The second reason we have failed is that we have not made the climate struggle an intersectional struggle and made it people-centric in our orientation. So unless, speaking globally now, The climate struggle is about food, about water, about soil, about jobs. Unless we can do that effectively, we cannot build the kind of constituency that we need. So we have to be thinking about our messaging and getting it to resonate with ordinary people, which we have failed to do on scale. Of course, all the inspirational examples that have been mentioned in this call already are all signs that we have got better over the years, but we have a long way to go before we can say, as a movement, we are the best that we need to be. The last point that I want to make is about the US's activism, climate activism's place in the world as a whole. And right now, if you ask me as an African, what is it we need from the US? And quite frankly, what we would say is that it's okay that you don't contribute globally. We don't really need your contribution to build a global movement. We need US climate activism to deliver us the US as a genuinely ambitious player in the global climate space. And so I end with saying that while there's a lot of pessimism, bear in mind that Donald Trump's election previously did galvanize all sorts of energies, all sorts of bravery, all sorts of positive movements forward. And we need to remember, in conclusion, I would say, what the Chinese say when the same character for crisis is the same character for opportunity. And it is up to us to turn what appears to be a crisis into an opportunity to advance not the struggle to save the planet, but the struggle to save our children and their children's futures. And I think bringing that kind of narrative to the conversation is critically important. I wish you all well, and I thank you for giving me a chance to enter this conversation as the president of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kumi. Thank you for all of your work and leadership. And that's an excellent transition because it's our pleasure to introduce one of our dear friends. Some people call him the Green New Deal dad, and someone who many of us turn to when we need optimism and ideas about how we can move forward in the climate movement. Thank you for being here, Senator Ed Markey.
No, thank you. And yeah, and I'm here tonight to give you some optimism. You know, we're raring to go. And I thank the Green New Deal Network for convening this powerful group. And thanks to all of you climate champions for tuning in all across the country. And I'd like to thank everyone who is partnering here tonight, because the power of this movement is continually undeniable. And unlike the newly inaugurated president, our record of victory is unimpeachable. And over the last 4 years, we have been winning and winning and winning. And over the next 4 years, we are going to need to be unstoppable. And even with Donald Trump's doomsday day one agenda, we're not going to stop fighting for a livable future. From the halls of Congress to city streets, from the factory floor to Wall Street boardrooms, it will take all of us, but we're all in. And we know we face an uphill battle with a climate denier in chief. He doesn't have a cabinet, he has a cartel that he's naming across the Department of Interior and Energy and all across his government. And you know the saying, money talks. Well, we heard the money talk loud and clear with Donald Trump's day one executive actions, which were a parade of price gouging fossil fuel giveaways. His energy agenda isn't American dominance, it's the dominance of his natural gas and oil donors. That's what we're seeing, because big oil is running scared and fossil fuels have been getting outcompeted by wind and by solar and all electric vehicles. The big oil barons see people rejecting their products and having an alternative, and they want to choke out the competition. That's what the fossil fuel fat cats demanded when they got Donald Trump elected, and that's what Trump is delivering on. And with his orders to attack climate action, attack offshore wind, attack international climate agreements, and attack our movement. But we've come a long way since Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I introduced the Green New Deal in February of 2019. All the experts laughed at it, but you know what we knew? That we were building a movement that was going to build the momentum, that was going to wind up with the IRA being passed. And another way of describing the IRA is the Green New Deal. Think about it like this. Back in 2009, when Waxman Markey passed the House and died in the Senate, there were 2,000 total megawatts of solar in the United States. That is from the beginning of time until 2009. In 2024, 40,000 megawatts of solar were installed in the United States of America. 40,000 one year. That's why they're panicking. That's why they put up all the big dough for Trump. And the same thing is true off of the coastline. We have Vineyard Wind moving towards completion. We had 30,000 megawatts of wind that was being proposed, and ultimately it would have been constructed. You know what that meant? We don't need the natural gas industry and their pipelines coming in to provide natural gas for electrical generation along the East Coast. We were winning, and we were winning big time. And the same thing was true on electric vehicles. In 2009, we had 2,000 total electric vehicles in the United States. That's all we had. And now we've got this electric car revolution that's so strong that the oil industry has to demand that you shut it down because of the much reduced amount of oil that needs to be consumed. So let me put it like this. They're not fighting us because they think we're winning. They're fighting us because they're losing. The fossil fuel industry is scared of us, scared of the revolution. And Donald Trump said he'd end the Green New Deal. Well, good luck. Because the Green New Deal movement was built in response to the climate crisis, and it can't be stopped with a speech or a tweet or an executive order. We won't stop until the climate crisis stops, because the climate crisis is still here. Between Hurricanes Milton and Helene and the Los Angeles fires, all in the last 4 months, our country is reeling from $500 billion. $500 billion worth of damage from 3 separate incidents. And that's it. Not everything else that was going on in our country in terms of damage from storms. Just those 3. $500 billion. And you know what? That dwarfs the price of our preventative care in the Inflation Reduction Act. But they're still afraid. They're still petrified. And what Trump is doing is he's saying he cares about the poor people who live in North Carolina. FEMA didn't come in fast enough, he says. He's concerned about LA. There wasn't enough help soon enough. But you know what he's doing? He's just making sure that the storms the next time are much bigger, that the fires the next time are much bigger, because he's taking out the preventative care. The planet is running a fever. There are no emergency rooms for planets. We have to put the preventative care in place, but it runs totally contrary to the bottom line of the oil and gas industry. That's why they're panicking, because we're winning. And this is crazy, because he had 3 billionaires sitting behind him. 3. And their net worth is worth more than the bottom 165 million Americans in our country. 50% of our population, they have more wealth And the rest of America is just sitting around the kitchen table debating which necessities to sacrifice this month. They're wondering if they can rebuild after a wildfire. They can keep the lights on when prices spike as energy gets exported abroad. So we just can't allow Trump and Republicans to throw families into financial instability just to pay for tax breaks for the ultra wealthy. And we will fight for our Green New Deal values no matter what Donald Trump says, because when we fight to save our planet, we fight for union jobs. We fight for health for our kids. We fight to save Americans' homes and wallets from climate-fueled chaos. Just like climate change won't be solved by any one American president, climate change won't be stopped by any one president. We're going to put the climate action in place to solve the problem. And that's the message I'm going to take to the halls of Congress. And that's what we will be organizing for in the streets around our country. What you're seeing today all across the country is this reaction to Trump's pardoning of these felons who harmed 140 police officers up on Capitol Hill. He gave them a pardon. And he's a little bit shocked at the response across the country. They're asking him tonight, do you respect police officers? Well, we got a lot of members of Congress, a lot of Republican members of Congress who the president thinks are going to march in lockstep. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to agonize. We're going to organize. We're going to let them know what the price is for their careers if they vote to kill solar. They vote to kill offshore wind. They vote to kill battery storage technology, because those jobs, 80% of them are in red districts. That's how the IRA got distributed. So it's going to be up to us right now. And my own belief is that as Trump makes decision after decision on issue after issue, we're going to have a movement once again that's going to create the momentum, that's going to win and win this year. And we're gonna make them pay an incredible political price the closer they get to all of those green solutions that we've already put on the book. So all I can say is thank you to all the Green New Dealers who are out there. We just gotta get up and fight. Let's just be honest where we are. The abolitionists, did they lose year after year? But did they get up every time? Absolutely. The suffragettes, did they lose year after year? Did they get up every time? Yes. Same-sex marriage? Yes. Anti-Vietnam? Yes. They kept getting back up and fighting. That's what we have to do right now. The whole world depends upon us doing this. Let's build the momentum, put the pressure on these Republicans, let them know they're losing their seats over this vote. You guys can do it. You've done it before. And I know you're going to do it again, because this green revolution is both blue and red. And you are the ones who have already made it blue and red. And we're going to protect it with every ounce of energy we have. Thank you all so much. Thanks for everything that you're doing.
LFG, Senator Markey, bringing the energy that I once had as a younger me. I feel like lighting it up. Yep, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. Or it's a Rocky Balboa and Senator Markey.
Right. We're knocked down, but we're not knocked out.
Yeah, never knocked out, never knocked out. And with that, I want to pass it over to our dear friend with Public Citizen, who's been really on the edge of talking about, creating a economy based on livelihoods, not on death and destruction abroad, and kind of making sure that we're taking care of the needs of our children and families first. And that's no other than Tracy Lewis. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Kaniela. And can I say it's always a pleasure to be here with Senator Markey. I will say it's very tough to be on after Senator Markey, but I'm going to do my best. So, thank you all. Anybody who's still hanging in here, I'm the last speaker, so we're getting close. And I want to share a couple of fun facts about the new administration with you. So I cannot use his name because it makes me feel physically ill to say it. So I just say 47. So 47's new administration includes more billionaires than any other administration in history. Surprise. The actual current set of nominees has a combined net worth that exceeds the GDP of 172 different countries. So you know they care about us. Yes. Another fun fact, the Interior Secretary nominee, Doug, as I like to call him, big oil billionaire Burgum, said in an April Fox News appearance that billionaires should support Trump if they care about their shareholders and their families. That's the whole list, shareholders and families. The other wonderful billionaire Treasury Secretary nominee, Scott Bessent, said during his confirmation hearing last week, that I was actually there, that when asked, he didn't know what Head Start does. He doesn't believe that, under questioning from Elizabeth Warren, doesn't believe that there's any group of billionaires that should be taxed at a higher level. And according to Senator Wyden, he's the nominee has apparently cheated on his taxes by avoiding $100 million of Medicare payments owed to the federal government. He also said he doesn't believe that the federal minimum wage of $7.25 should be increased. But hey, he mentors poor Black kids in Harlem whose parents are probably making that unlivable minimum wage. The kids are probably enrolled in Head Start. It's just too bad for them that they weren't born with silver spoons in their mouths like Bessent's supreme leader. So I'm just going to keep it real with you all. I hate to break it to these millionaires and billionaires who are taking over the executive branch of our government and filling it with their MAGA sycophants, but fossil fueled fires, floods, hurricanes, and other extreme weather events, they do lots of things, but they do not check bank balances or stock holdings before unleashing their deadly fury. And sadly, the LA fires prove that once again. And you know what's really interesting about these guys who are almost exclusively always men? They really do only care about their shareholders and their ultra-rich families, as our good friend, billionaire Big Oil Burgum said. These billionaires do not care that insurance companies and big asset managers like BlackRock are the largest financiers of fossil fuel projects that lead to this extreme weather with increased greenhouse gas emissions that destroy our livelihoods. They do not care that people are forced to choose between paying their mortgage or rent instead of their homeowners or renters insurance because of the skyrocketing costs, or just being kicked off their insurance entirely. And these big billionaires truly do not care if worker pension funds and 401ks will be decimated by asset managers' investments in planet-killing fossil fuels when those managers could easily choose renewable energy investments instead. So you've heard everyone speak today. And so many people are asking, like, so what are we going to do? Are we going to sit around gnashing our teeth, tearing at our fast fashion clothes? Hell no, we are not. Friends, today what we're going to do is dig down deep. We are going to be constellations of hope in this darkened world. We are going to make commitments to ourselves, our families, and most importantly, our communities to fight for what every single person in this country deserves, no matter how wrong-headed their political ideology may be. But everybody deserves clean air and water. They deserve a safe and sound financial system that works for everyone, not just the 1% of the 1%. And everyone deserves racial equality, gender equality, and true justice for all. Look, this is going to be hard. This is hard work that requires more than just sign-on letters and online petitions. We have got to reach down and dig deep. I'm a former English major, so I always have a little bit of poetry in my remarks. And I love this Walt Whitman opening. We must sing the body electric and celebrate the we yet to come. every last person on this call has a North Star within you that shines its way for others. But we can only be that beacon of hope, that constellation of hope, if we let that inner light shine. So what do we do to unleash that internal sustainable energy? We have got to build true grassroots support for our agenda. And so many people on this call have been doing that. We have to go door by door, city by city, state by state, with meaningful engagement with neighbors and move them to action on a variety of things. For me, a public citizen, one of those is making sure that our pensions and 401ks aren't being used to prop up the fossil fuel industry. It's also important that we keep building on the successful work that we've done. For me, we've been working on community banks and ensuring that they are able to provide funding to local businesses, first-time homeowners, and others, that and provide that critical support to protect those community members against climate-related financial risk. We need to repeat over and over again, how is this helping the American people save money and hold down costs? Every time Trump, oh, I said his name, every time 47 lays out some other insane plan, we have to say to people, how is this helping put money back in your wallet? How is this helping you? It never is. It's only helping his billionaire friends. But I say, kind of in closing, the most important thing we have to do in terms of financial regulation is really continue to pour our energy into advocating for homeowners and renters who are losing their homes, not just to severe weather, but to insurance companies who milk them dry, refuse to make them whole after a disaster, and then use the same money that they wouldn't use for the insured to line the pockets of the fossil fuel industry to keep building more earth-killing projects. Make it make sense. So just again, in closing, there's a great educator named Benjamin E. Mays. He was the president of Morehouse College when Dr. King was a student there. And he has a wonderful quote that reminds me of the challenge ahead of all of us and the mantle that we must carry. However hard the road, however difficult today, tomorrow will be better. Now, tomorrow may not be better, but we must trust that it will be. So I say, our tomorrow starts today, right here, right now. So let's do this.
Thank you so much, Tracy. We appreciate you for your inspiring words. And now I'm going to introduce our last but not least speaker, an amazing organizer and the executive director of Disabled Disruptors, Kira Tiller. Thanks for being here.
Of course, thank you so much. And it is so difficult to follow all of these absolutely incredible speakers. So my name is Kira, and I'm the founder and executive director of Disabled Disruptors. We are a youth-led grassroots organization fighting for disability justice and specifically uplifting the voices of disabled students and disabled youth. And as a young person and as a disabled person, the dangers of the climate crisis are constantly on my mind on a daily basis. I, like millions of others across the country and across the world, have asthma triggered by the extreme heat and extreme cold caused by climate change. I am personally from the Washington, D.C. area, and all but one of DC's top 10 warmest years on record have happened since 2012. We've had almost a full week of 100-degree days in 2024 during the summer. And this means that due to my asthma, if I go outside during the summer, during this weather, I could quite literally die. This is not normal, and we should not accept this as our new normal. Climate change is here, and it's already threatening the lives of everyone, but especially disabled people on a daily basis. I also think about the LA fires, as everyone has mentioned, that have displaced over 100,000 people. And during fires, people are often instructed to run to the nearest exit. But what if you can't run? What if the exit isn't accessible? What if you can't even hear the smoke detector go off? There was a story of a disabled father and son who called for help, assistance getting out during the LA fires, but no one ever came and they were killed by the fires. And there are countless other stories like this. And as I hear more and more of these stories, I'm angry. I'm angry that people in my community are dying and people across all communities are dying. I'm angry that the president of our country is allowing people to die at the hands of climate change and makes a mockery of the climate crisis. And this is why now, more than ever, it is essential that we focus on fighting for local and state policy wins to protect our communities. At Disabled Disruptors, we have authored and introduced legislation into the Virginia State Legislature to ensure that disabled students are fully protected and accommodated during emergency situations at schools, such as fires and natural disasters, which are becoming so much more prominent with the climate crisis. This bill would create individualized emergency protocols in every disabled student's accommodations plans as climate disasters impact our schools and our ability to live our lives more and more. Legislation like this is so critical, not just for disabled students, but for all disabled students to prioritize our safety and our lives. And actually, on a high note, with all of the depressing news with the Trump administration, our bill has actually passed out of the House in the Virginia legislature unanimously, and we expect it to pass into law. And this is just the beginning. This organizing victory shows that young people recognize that the climate crisis is one of the most significant threats to our very existence. And it's time that legislators and non-disabled organizers acknowledge this crucial intersection too. Disabled lives are on the line, and we deserve to be centered in this movement. The climate movement, like all organizing, is based around radical love for each other and for our communities. Intersectionality is the heart of our movement, and we can't achieve true liberation without ensuring that the voices of the most marginalized in this crisis, including disabled people, are heard and prioritized. More disabled people will join the climate movement if they see that they are in the conversation. Together, we have to fight for a future where everyone has the right to safety, dignity, and just survival in the face of the climate crisis, like everyone here has been saying. And I'm truly honored to organize with such incredible people. And I look forward to working with you all. And also just a little plug here. I'm also a part of my my school, UNC Chapel Hill's Sunrise Movement chapter. Shout out to Aru, Executive Director of Sunrise. Love you guys. And we are actually hosting a college climate gathering at the beginning of February for students and community members across the Southeast to come together and come to the UNC campus to really discuss the issues that matter to them and how we can regionally and locally address the climate crisis and center our communities in the process. So for those of you who would be interested in helping to support this or showing up, we greatly appreciate it. And as for Disabled Disruptors, we cannot wait to do this work with you all to center accessibility, the lives of disabled students and disabled people everywhere, and ensure that we are having an intersectional and impactful conversation. So yeah, let's raise some hell and win a livable future.
Thank you so much, Kira. Thank you for your work and leadership. We appreciate you. Thank you, everyone. So Now we're going to talk about what we do next. We've been talking about it throughout the call, but we need everyone right now. And to build real power on climate justice, we need a bigger coalition than we've ever had or ever seen. And that starts by gathering people in communities to build power for people by people. We've been thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In honor of MLK Day yesterday. And in his 1967 book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, he said something that resonated for us in this moment. Dr. King said, "These must be supplemented by a continuing job of organization. To produce change, people must be organized to work together in units of power. We must engage in the task of organizing people into permanent groups to protect their own interests and produce change in their behalf." And that is our call to action today. Wherever you are, what we're inviting you to do is join and build a local organizing community, to meet your neighbors and bring your friends, to commit to struggling for justice together, even in the difficult years ahead. And we're going to be building local conversations. So we have a form you can fill out, and what we're going to be doing is connecting you with folks in your area to either take action at an event that's already happening or to organize one together if there isn't something happening, because this is up to all of us. So we're going to be creating new events all over the country or supporting existing ones directly following this call. And you'll see the link in the chat that Mercedes just posted. I also want to highlight the Climate Action Campaign. Some of the core partners for this call are already organizing 3 events in Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and Detroit. So we have an excellent model for organizing other rallies and actions. Those events are on February 8th in Pittsburgh and Atlanta, and February 15th in Detroit. And so we're inviting you to attend those events if you're nearby, but also many folks, including Kira at the end, talked about other events happening in North Carolina, happening in Washington, D.C., happening all over the country in California and in other places. And we're going to be following up and inviting you to these events to organize with people in your community. Please fill out the form so you can attend a location near you. And also you'll see in the form that some of our partners at CAC are organizing a sticker campaign. And so if you're interested in putting a Climate Can't Wait sticker out or spreading them in your community, they'll send them to you in the mail so you can put in your address to receive a sticker as well. Now I'm going to pass it off to our National Director at the Green New Deal Network, Kaniela Ng, for some closing remarks to wrap up the call. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Saul, and thank you for all the speakers that came out. What an incredible lineup of people across sectors, across gamuts, geographies, gender, everything. And it was really impactful to me. I learned a lot, and I do this work all the time. So yeah, just thanks for gracing us with your presence and your words. One thing I mentioned on top of the call was like this feeling of anger or despair and just directing it at not at each other. But I think there's another feeling too that I've been feeling a lot through all this, and it's like it's a sense of isolation that I think wasn't here in 2016. And because it just felt like everyone was ready to resist. Everyone was ready to take action, and you could just feel it. You can feel it in the air. You can see it on the streets, and it's different now. And I think about that a lot because I'm here in Hawaii, and a lot of my community, Native Hawaiians, Filipinos, etc., working class neighborhood, have gone the way of Donald Trump. And I've always been that kind of misfit in my family where maybe a little bit I take empathy in a different way. I cry a lot during movies, etc. Really opening up here, y'all. But I feel like I'm not the only one, and the thing about events like this and being able to be engaged with folks that are like-minded is you don't feel lonely anymore. You don't feel isolated anymore. Like it's just something that we should do for the collective, but also do for ourselves. Like imagine being in a text thread like the ones that you used to be with your college or high school friends, but it's with people who like believe in this with you. Like that's what organizing is. It's building not just community but family. So sign up. If you ever felt like you were, missing piece, you belong to a different puzzle, and that's what this is. So please sign up, get involved, and let's take action together. We'll win. All right. Aloha mai kako.